A great benefit of mindfulness training is increasing the ability to watch your thoughts go by without being adversely affected by them. Allowing thoughts to float in and out of your mind without pushing them away or holding on to them is quite a challenge, as you've probably discovered from the previous exercises. There are two forms of opposition that get in the way of mindfully being with your thoughts. These are avoidance and rumination. Avoidance is the urge to push thoughts, ideas, or a situation away from your mind as soon as you detect them. It gets in the way of letting thoughts in a mindful, non-judgmental way. At its core, avoidance operates to protect you from thoughts, feelings, and situations that you think you cannot bear. Thus, avoidance is motivated by keeping particular thoughts or situations at bay, not getting too close to them for fear you'll not be able to tolerate those events or the feelings they bring up for you. One of the problems with avoiding thoughts is that while it's an appealing strategy, it tends not to work, especially in the longer term. In fact, it can create an opposite effect, whereby the very thing that you're trying not to think about keeps coming to mind. It's a bit like if I say, don't think about pink elephants. It becomes very difficult not to think about those pink elephants. By contrast, rumination is the tendency to hold on to thoughts and repeatedly go over and over them. Rumination is different from reflective thought or thinking through, where you may come to an understanding, conclusion, or make decisions about how to proceed. It's difficult to move towards acceptance or make a decision when ruminating. It just takes you over and over the same material. Think of it like a rat in a rat wheel with thoughts going around and around, and you don't actually get anywhere and very little is achieved, yet it's really hard to stop going around and around. Ruminating gets in the way of letting thoughts out in that mindful, non-judgmental way. So both avoidance and ruminating of thoughts get in the way of comfortably sitting with and being with thoughts. It also changes the way that we experience everyday situations. So here's an example to try and illustrate the different responses. So imagine it's the middle of the day and you're home alone with your baby and he begins crying again. You've had little sleep the night before. You're tired and you're overwhelmed. What sorts of thoughts might come up for you? If it was an avoiding thinking response, it might be, oh my gosh, I can't face this again. I can't stand his crying. Why won't he stop? I can't do this anymore. This response is about trying to get away from the reality of the situation rather than being mindful about the present moment and the reality that your baby is crying. A ruminating thinking response might be, he's crying again, I'm hopeless at this, I'm a bad mother, I'll never get this right, I can't get anything right, I don't know what to do. This response is filled with critical thoughts of self-blame that tumble from one thought to the next. It leaves you feeling inadequate and stuck, so caught up in your thoughts that again you can't stay present for your baby or stop to clearly think about how you could help yourself or your baby. So a more mindful response might be more, he's crying again. This is wearing me down. It must be wearing him down too. He really needs my help to feel soothed and comforted. But I'm feeling agitated again. I need to calm myself before I can try to calm him. Okay, let me take a few deep breaths while I'm holding him and see if I can focus on relaxing my body. This response acknowledges the reality of the situation without pushing it away, but also without getting too overwhelmed by it. So it oscillates between noticing your own emotional and physical states as well as that of your baby's. Then there's an attempt to do something to help both yourself and your baby by mindfully focusing on your breath and your body. In order to move from avoidance to a mindful position, you need to increase tolerance to the very things that you've been avoiding. Avoidance is an effective strategy in that when we avoid things we're concerned about, our anxiety immediately decreases. The problem is that each time you avoid, your tolerance for the thing that you are avoiding reduces even more. So instead of helping yourself with the problem, you're making it more difficult for yourself to deal with that thought, feeling, or situation the next time it arises. So the answer? Mindful exposure. So when you expose yourself to the very thing you want to avoid and manage to remain as calm as possible, you start to increase your tolerance to those thoughts, feelings, and situations. This then has a generalizing effect in that increasing tolerance to things you avoid helps to increase tolerance to difficult thoughts and feelings in general. We can liken building tolerance to building physical stamina. In each case, it's best to start small and then slowly build up over time. Gaining tolerance or stamina requires repeated effort, so you need to encourage yourself and be realistic that it can be hard, just like regular exercise. So you wouldn't expect to go from being a couch potato to running a marathon in a really short amount of time without at least a bit of training. Building tolerance to something you want to avoid is the same. You need lots of small gains along the way, and you need to be patient with yourself and encourage yourself. So what does this actually mean in terms of what you practically do to decrease avoidance and increase tolerance? First, you need to become aware of the thoughts, feelings, or situations you avoid. Without awareness, you're not in a position to try anything different. Once you have this insight and begin to catch those thoughts or ideas that you avoid, you then need to expose yourself to the very things you wish to get away from. So an example of exposure is to mindfully sit with or be with the thoughts that you usually avoid. So for instance, in the above example with about your baby's crying, you might sit with the thoughts, feelings, or the situation where your baby is crying and just notice what is going on for you. In addition, do your best to keep yourself as calm as possible while sitting with your thoughts, reminding yourself that these are just thoughts, just ideas, just feelings, that they can be tolerated without anything catastrophic happening, and that they will pass. This sort of exposure will often demonstrate that sitting with your experiences is not as bad as you imagined. Tolerating the present reality as it is, without denial and without pushing it away, leads us to acceptance. In order to move from a ruminating to a mindful position, we need to stop the ever-moving rat wheel and become more aware of our ruminating patterns. Mindfulness can really help you to slow down and be curious about your thoughts. When you find your thoughts are going around and around, you want to stop and focus on your thoughts by slowing them down and focusing on them one at a time. This helps to slow that rat wheel so you can actually pay attention to all the thoughts spinning around in your mind. You want to be present in the moment so that you can notice with curiosity what your thoughts are saying and where to go. Adopt the beginner's mind to observe your thoughts as if you were seeing them for the first time. This is quite different to our usual state of ruminating, where our thoughts get repeated so often that we no longer actually hear them or even pay attention to them. And then do your best to be curious rather than judgmental. It's really hard to let go of thoughts if we are harshly judging them or the thoughts themselves are judgmental. So we want to try to suspend that judgmental aspects and just be curious about our thoughts. And we want to be asking ourselves, am I letting thoughts in or am I avoiding and pushing them away? Am I allowing thoughts out or am I holding on to them and ruminating? What can I do right now to help myself be more mindful, to be in the present moment, and to not push thoughts away or get stuck in my thoughts?